Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the House of Footy podcast. I'm Jack Hudson, and joining me, as always, is Warren Tredrea. Treaders, how you going, mate?
I'm good, Hutto, but I'm better now because a bloke who tried to knock Darryl Wakeland's head off in a grand final has joined us. He's probably heard it a million times. He was born in Tassie in Burnie. He played in Hobart. He went to Fitzroy, then the Brisbane Bears, Brisbane Lions, only won 3 flags. And probably one of his greatest achievements in hindsight might be that he's an inaugural board member for the new Tassie Devils. Alastair Lynch, mate. Thank you for joining us on House of Footy.
Treaders, thanks very much. And g'day, Hutto. Yes, there's a few things that I'd like to put on the back burner. And that one was gifting you blokes a bloody premiership. So, no, it was, we had, fair to say, we had a great rivalry through those years. And I think, Collingwood played in a couple of grand finals. You guys rightly finished at the top of the ladder on numerous occasions. And Essendon was a powerhouse at that time as well. So it was a great era. We were very, very fortunate to be able to sneak out with 3, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, as soon as you can claim 3, mate, you're a happy man and well-deserved too. Take you back to the start of your career, mate. We're not going to do This Is Your Life for you because we're really excited about this Tasmanian opportunity that you're a part of. But for a kid growing up, born in Burnie, playing in Tassie, representing the state on 4 occasions, you then have to go to Melbourne to play league footy. Does the recent announcements with the AFL licenses, new jumpers, kindle some sort of love for footy for the homeland? Because you've been gone a long time, but now you're giving back. And how exciting is that for you?
Yeah, you're spot on. So growing up in Tassie, and I suppose, just guessing that a lot of your audience is South Australian based. I mean, growing up, whether it's Adelaide or in the regional centres, there's a lot of passion about your football teams. And a lot of us used to have a local team and also a VFL team at the time. And I was, I probably wasn't a great junior and just sort of got through okay, then found myself athletic enough, I suppose, to get drafted. And my first experiences were in the mid to late 80s playing for Tassie, and that was a great honour. And then one of the big thrills, I played in the State of Origin Carnival, which was probably, you were still in school, I reckon, Treaders, but the 88 State of Origin Carnival,
yep,
where we came over to Adelaide, and I got to play for Tassie. And you looked around, all the big leagues there, so NFL teams and the Vics and the Western Australians, and you dreamed about being able to compete against those guys. And that carnival was before I actually played for Fitzroy. So when I got back home to Melbourne, I got the chance to play for Fitzroy, and it was always a dream to represent your state, but then play at the highest level. And to be able to do that these days for these young kids, I think it's great for the state. It is a passionate footy state, and everyone's just thought, well, we've got to leave. And so many of us have to leave, whether it's other sports or industry. But now there's clear pathways for certainly basketball. Cricket's been strong for a while. And now that we're getting very close to having a team in the AFL, it's huge for the state.
So when you were growing up, and obviously in your junior days of your career, Tassie, the competition was expanding, but are you surprised it's taken this long for a Tassie team to get in? Because it feels like it's just criminal it's been this long.
Yeah, well, there was probably there was a couple of key times, I think. In 1990, the Tasmanian team defeated Victoria at North Hobart Oval.
I
remember the comments in the press after the game, and Teddy Whitten was down there, David Parkin was the coach, and it was a massive win. It was the biggest day in Tasmanian football history. And it's got a rich history, but to get that win, there was talk about when can we get into the AFL competition or then the VFL competition, because it already had expanded. There was already the West Coast Eagles and already the Brisbane Bears. So what was next? And we had that opportunity then, and it just didn't really pan out. And I think there was a number of bid committees that I was on one many years ago, and everyone just felt that there wouldn't be the support down there, and most importantly, it wouldn't be sustainable off the field. And the most recent task force, along with the state government, proved that it was. Now, we've got to put that into action, obviously, but just with what's happened over the last week, that confidence has been reinforced to have what is approaching 150,000 members in the first couple of days is incredible.
Yeah, it's almost taking the piss out of the rest of the competition, isn't it? Well, you've got 125,000 people paying $10 a pop. Clearly, some of those might support other teams, but
Yeah.
I think it just shows the love from the rest of the competition to go, hey, if I'm a Port man or someone's for the Crows or someone's from Brisbane or Greater Western Sydney, there's a kid growing up against his mates in rugby league, why can't kids in Tassie have the same thing? You mentioned that support. Did you see anything like this coming? Or was this just, you reckon, the momentum or the tsunami that's on its way?
Oh, you know what, Treaders, it is. No, we didn't see that number coming. To be very frank, we had targets, and I reckon one of the sort of formal target at board level. No, I don't think I'm speaking out of school, but it was around the 40,000. We thought we'd get around that sort of mark. But when we talk about football states and expansion clubs, we see that and if you like, and we're closer to a Port Adelaide than a GWS, if you like, because like Port Adelaide coming into the competition, there is a rich history. So there's that a history of success, and although we didn't play in a competition, there was a lot of great players that played in that jumper. So one of the things from a football point of view and a football director on the board was we've got to harness that history and harness the momentum that has been building over the years and make sure that we engage the greats. Now, we don't want to live in the past. That's a given. We don't want to live in the past. But the reality is, you look at the AFL team of the century from last century, you've got the likes of Ian Stewart, Peter Hudson, Darryl Baldock, Royce Hart. They're four players that are significant icons in the game. Now, they're from Tasmania, so we wanted them to be on board. So I've spoken to those three, and obviously Darryl Baldock's passed away, but engaged Darryl Baldock's family via his wife, Margaret, who's 86 and just wants to see a team in the national competition. So I thought that was the starting point. And again, you'd respect this. Part of the heritage of, I'm guessing, Port Adelaide, like Tassie, is not just the Peter Hudsons and Royce Harts and those guys. It's the people that jump behind the wet mess and they're selling beers during the game. It's the volunteers that for ever and a day have supported that club. So also, and that's why we had a launch at 6 different venues around the state. So there was Queenstown, St Helens, Oatlands, Devonport, Launceston and Hobart, because we wanted to reinforce that this is not just a Hobart football club. It's a state team, and sort of we wanted to make sure we harness that. So with that, we was confident, and again at board level, we're thinking maybe we could get to 80,000 or something like that. But again, a day and a half in, we flew past that. So the philosophy was there to engage everyone, and like you said before, a lot of these people that have joined as foundation members of the Tassie Football Club do support other clubs, and maybe not. Tasmania may not going to be their number one team, but I'm guessing you Treaders, we want to see a vibrant competition, and we want to see every state represented. And I think there's no question that everyone wants to see Tasmania. There was question marks about having 19 teams and is it sustainable? But I think everyone's supportive of having a Tasmanian team in the competition, and that's where I think this passion has come from.
Yeah, and if you talk about that commercial, the first thing they think of, I'll get James Bogues or Cadbury to sign up as a major sponsor. So the bit I find really interesting with this 125,000 is that's 125,000, I assume, that have paid their $10, which they have. Yep. You've then got email addresses, you've then got data, you've got stuff. So now you can effectively go and get into the commercial world to attract some sponsorship, to get some revenue. Obviously, that's a big up that probably people don't see straight away.
Yeah, and going back a step, so before this happened, and just with what the bit of momentum that started prior to the foundation membership going out, we had in double digits tier 1 sponsors from multinationals, but from around the country approaching us already. What can we do? How can we get branded with your football club at this early stage? Now that's only going to be enhanced with what you're saying with these numbers. It is a database. We want to take this foundation membership group on the journey with us. There'll be periodical announcements, there'll be merchandise, and then we'll build up to when we do enter the VFL competition. Then obviously the focus eventually will be AFLW and AFL debuts in 28.
And obviously as well, I want to make a bit of a comparison. Obviously, you've seen Brisbane having to grow organically in a market, do you find it like, and probably not the right word, but easier in a traditional market where you've got the fans and it's a traditional football club already? That's the vibe that I'm getting.
Oh, that's easier. I think so. I'm fully supportive of what the AFL did with making their decisions to expand the 17th and 18th teams.
Yeah.
So the AFL were always looking to grow the game. And you look at Greater Western Sydney and to a lesser degree the Gold Coast, there's a great opportunity to grow new viewers and new members of the national game. And so I understand that. But that's a lot of hard work, especially in Greater Western Sydney, to convert. And there's a core AFL supporter base there, but to grow that is very difficult. In Tassie, the argument against us being the 17th and 18th team was that everyone's already engaged. Everyone already has a club. They might follow, Richmond, Carlton, Hawthorn, those sort of teams. Collingwood, probably not so much Port Adelaide down in Tassie, but there is some good sponsorship down there, support of Port Adelaide as well. But so there wasn't going to be too many new viewers. But at some stage, you've got to sort of do what's right and harness that football passion and respect it. And I think that's what's happened. And I love what the AFL have done to give us this opportunity. Now we've still got a couple of stepping stones to get over. But we're working well towards that. But I think, it's fantastic to work with the AFL to get us in a good position where we can not only hit 28 and be competitive, but more importantly, be sustainable both on and off the field.
Lynchy, do you like your opportunity facing, for example, Hawthorn, who's had a stranglehold on that Launceston market? North Melbourne have tried with obviously Hobart, but your selling point is you get to see us every second week. Is that something you think over time will progress the kids? And you might not get the adults at the moment who are Richmond history, or someone who loves Alastair Lynch, went from Fitzroy to the Lions up in Brisbane. Do you think that's going to flow through from a junior development aspect and you'll be able to get into the schools to just grow it from day dot? So pretty much any young kid out of Tasmania is a Devils fan.
Yeah, so, and I'm sure at grassroots level, you guys do this as well in your region. But so in Tasmania now, one of the things that we think will underpin our ability to be a strong club both on and off the field is to have great grassroots footy competitions and vibrant competitions in schools. So create those pathways. And we know that realistically, there's only going to be a small amount of those athletes, male and female, will get drafted. But if we can funnel them into the academy for all sorts of opportunities, whether it be education, academically, or in the football space, so they can go out of that academy eventually. And if they don't get drafted, they go back to community football and can contribute in that way. So I think it's a really interesting time, but we look at grassroots footy as the most important to underpin everything. And I mean, I'll ask you this, Tredders. Looking back at the Port Adelaide days, now obviously, Port Adelaide supporters are passionate, but they probably had a VFL team as well. When Port came into the competition, did they stay with their Essendons and Richmonds, or was it just automatically we're going to go for Port Adelaide because that's who I used to support?
Yeah, it's an interesting chat, Lynchy, because I was also a kid that was a Crows member. I was a Port supporter in the Maggies and the Sample, but I just wanted to watch AFL. So for me, that was easy. I know people in all instances. I know people who went to watch the Crows and never went back to Port in the AFL, but they followed the Maggies and the Sample. I knew others that were Collingwood that easily retrench. Others stayed with Collingwood. I thought the majority would stay with their club, but I think when that perspective is that they went back to their home club, which was always Sample based. So I think, the competition nowadays for kids is what it is. You look in Sydney, the young kids, they're fighting between the two Sydney teams. Brisbane, Queensland teams the same. Tassie, the beauty of what you've got is you've got a clear market. You've got elsewhere or you've got yourself. And the beauty of the selling point is not everyone else can go into your schools, can run your Auskick clinics when running all those sorts of things. And I think that's a massive upside because I remember reading an article years ago that participation levels, the local Tassie League was starting to struggle. Some clubs were closing down or close to. This is only going to help. Yes, it's going to help from an AFL perspective, but I think grassroots is you're going to have those feeder competitions for all those kids, young men and women who want to play and take the game on and make a career potentially of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the challenges now, as you said, like the grassroots and community football has dropped off a little bit in Tassie. So one of the issues that we've really had and identified, and we're going to address, is that if a kid coming out of the academy or under 18 system, all of a sudden and playing in the state league doesn't get drafted, he's going for the next stepping stone to help him get drafted, and often it is to go to South Australia. So, so Tassie has leaked a lot of talent going to South Australia. Now, from a selfish point of view, we'd like to stop that and enhance the Tasmanian product and give that as a really useful vehicle to help get drafted, or again, stay in a vibrant competition. So yeah, that'll be a challenge for us. I'm thinking that we'll get a lot of people that have their old clubs, whether it be whoever. But you probably don't really know until you go watch your old club play Tassie. So it's Eston Tassie at Macquarie Point in Hobart, hopefully. And they don't know until they run out who their heart takes them to. So I think that the bond of being Tasmanian and supporting Tasmania will be pretty strong. But yeah, yet to be seen. But we're certainly off to a good start.
Is using someone like the Jack Jumpers, for example, who have been so successful in building that really quickly, someone like you're sort of working with?
Yeah, I think it's not a formal arrangement, but there's almost like it's almost like the Tassie Sports Club at the moment. Everyone's sort of, we're not so much competing. We want to sort of support each other. And it was the same here in Brisbane when we had the Lions were up and going. Then you got the Broncos and you got the Reds and you got soccer teams as well. You sort of support each other, and that's what we want to do in Tassie as well. And the Jack Jumpers have been fantastic. The fact that they've got up and going, been very, very competitive on the court. But what they've also done, they've proven that they've got the energy to get around the state. So where I come from on the northwest coast of Tassie, which is a long way away from Hobart, but the Jack Jumpers find, and their coach and their top players get up to that part of the state to make sure that everyone feels that it is a state team and not just a Hobart-based team. So they do that very well. So they're not something that we didn't plan for to start with, but their success reinforces what we've got to do.
Yeah. Lynchy, the Guernsey, the state jumper, some people say shouldn't have a state jumper. Then it's been clarified that, no, it's just a launch jumper. So do we expect new designs, or is there a line? Because it's sort of launched like you were going to wear the old State of Origin jumper every week. Is that the case or not?
Well, yeah, no, it is the case. That's our jumper. As we know, there'll be variations moving forward. There'll be different themed rounds where we have different jumpers. There might be away jumpers, that sort of stuff. Yeah. And the process we went through with engaging communities and surveying communities and those legends, those names I mentioned before, and many, many more, like Richo and Rodney Eade and all these sort of players, sat down with them and tossed it open that what do you guys think? And we went through everything that we announced the other day, basically. So what should the name be? And when we're talking about what's the name going to be on the ladder, well, you want Tasmania, can't really have Tasmanian. So it's going to be Tasmania Football Club. The colours were a given. They're unique to the national code and they're uniquely Tasmanian. So that was a given. The Devils was a given, knowing that we couldn't go with the Tasmanian Tigers because of Richmond. Yes. So the Devils was ticked off. And then it was about, what's the jumper going to be? And I would say, to pluck a number, 90% was very strong behind, this is our jumper. This is the one we want to represent us. We see the map as a uniting symbol for the whole of the state to, again, get away from the Hobart Football Club. So it was, it was very, very passionately strong. And we're open to discussing other options. But in the end, across the board, at all levels of key stakeholders, it was very strong. That's our jumper. So, yeah, that's what we decided to go with. We understand there's criticisms, understand it's the State of Origin jumper, but there's a lot of South Australians that represented Tasmania and played in that jumper, same with Victorians. That was passionately, take this opportunity to trade on our history and our culture that's already in place. Well, that's the story that we, the board, have been told. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. So
So they just thought it was a cartoon.
they had no idea that it was an actual animal.
Yeah.
So no, that was staggering. So to say, is that 100% right? I'm not sure. That's officially what we've been told via the AFL. Did a lot of this negotiations with Warner Brothers. That's what the feedback was at the time of the meeting. So yes, quite staggering.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to deny a real animal, isn't it? As a
Well,
motto or as an emblem.
yeah, I think, and I think the negotiations and discussions have gone really well. But yeah, I mean, end of the day, it's our animal, isn't it? So
Yeah, I would have
yeah.
thought.
Oh, remarkable. Have you got any idea on sort of the draft concessions like the years down the track, or is that still all fair track away?
No, that's for, right in the middle of my desk,
Oh,
basically.
Just
So
lift it
there are
up a
things.
bit. Just give us a lift
Yeah,
up.
yeah. No, that might cause a few issues, but no, that's something we're in discussions with the AFL, and again, the AFL have been really helpful in this space. So it's looking at what worked for the Suns, how it was evolved for the Giants, and not just how it was evolved as far as what access you've got, but also how you use those picks with juniors, your 17-year-olds to start with, your first round draft picks, and then also what mature age players you picked up. So that is something we're working through at the moment. And in the next, I would say there'd be an announcement in the next, let's call it 3 to 6 months. So as we work towards that list build criteria.
And you look at that list build. I think I read 11 out of the first 14 picks the year before the Giants came in. You'd sort of want, and historically, I know when Port launched, it was 4 uncontracted players, but it obviously increases because you want to be competitive straight up. But I also read in the Herald Sun yesterday around sign-on fees and the AFL looking to do some other bits and pieces to help you out, because there's no point launching a new franchise or a new team if you're not going to be competitive, is there? Because if I look at history, you go Gold Coast went experience and it didn't necessarily work. Giants went kids, and it took a long while to sort of to flow or to flourish. What's your thinking as to probably the best fit for the Tassie team?
Yeah, and probably the easiest answer is like pluck the best of both. There was a 17-year-old mini draft with the Giants as well, where they had the opportunity to trade those 17-year-olds for mature age players. I think, and you'd know this better than I, but the signing of Brogan and Corns to the Giants was a great. I think they were great appointments because you get them as basically on-field assistant coaches to start with. Then you also give them opportunity to transition out of that to an off-field role. So, learning from those. But I think, it's that balance between the talent that's going to help you be sustainable for a long period of time and also tapping into the best around. So, yeah, we don't want it to be a retirement fund for 32-year-olds, but if we can find some elite 26-year-olds that are in and around that All-Australian squad to be the core of your team, that'd be important. So yeah, I think there's going to be a balance, but yeah, the competition, the clubs want us to be reasonably competitive. Don't get me wrong, I'm not sure you guys on the board of Port Adelaide would be keen for us to win the flag in the first couple of years.
As long as we win it before you, we don't care.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I think we need to come in be reasonably competitive, just so we're not a drain on the rest of the competition as well. And I think that was one of the concerns from other clubs, that we don't want this to be a financial drain on the AFL and us as a club. So yeah, we need a certain amount of success or competitiveness early.
And I think a list of potential free agents came out a few days ago. How early do you start the list? Because I don't know, list managers obviously work well in advance, but do you sort of pencil a few names going, yeah, maybe, or what do you do?
Well, if you can send me that list just to start with,
I'll do that.
Yeah, send that through. Yeah, no, it's a long way out. And I think like the athlete managers out there are fairly astute the way they go about things. They know when the Tasmanian team is coming in, and even if their player has no intention of leaving a great environment at his current club, they may leave it till 27 before they extend the contract, just to have another option. So, no, there'll be a lot of planning. Well, the planning started now. putting list managers in place and recruiters in place is a task over the next 12 months to help us build a list for VFL competition and to be competitive in that competition as well. And then obviously get us to a stage where we're competitive once we hit the AFL and AFLW teams, competitions.
Sorry, Lynch. And what some people don't realise is the draftees from actually the end of this year will minimum 3-year contracts now will fall all out of contract on the eve of you guys going in. So I'd suspect that there's a bit of a Callum Ward war chest heading Tom Scully type players' way. So I think it's great for the comp. I think it brings in more freedom for the players, free agency, and if the clubs, to be honest, aren't moving very quickly, we're seeing monster deals being signed by some people. Why? Because they know Tassie's a threat. Everyone is very well aware of what is coming, and Tassie's are obviously well aware of what clubs are trying to do to counter that.
Yeah, and having a salary cap and the ability to go and sign some players and trade players. It's we've got to be very smart that we attract the right players that sort of don't want to just come down, get a big check for a couple of years and dart off. The right ones that can contribute both on and off the field, as we're saying with the Port guys that went to the Giants, can sort of set standards and establish a culture at a club so that it is something that's going to be successful moving forward. So yeah, there's a lot of planning. It's not just the guy that gets the most kicks and takes the most marks. It's what that person can contribute, and that person, wants to live somewhere outside maybe the footy bubble, or there's a fair footy focus down there in Tassie, but yeah, out of Melbourne or something like that. So yeah, there's a few criteria we'll be going through, but yeah, it'll be a very complex list build, but we're looking forward to it.
And last one we probably have for you, Lynch, the AFLW program. So what's the sort of layout and how's that?
So, well, the AFLW. So at this stage, the planning is that both AFLW and AFL teams will come into the national competition in 28. We're working through the process now of what will it take to get us to 28 in good condition, both on and off the field. And that is, so working out VFLW and VFL, how many years in those competitions and what sort of lists do we have to make sure that we get to 28 in the best condition. So we're going through that planning now. So AFLW's, very much in those discussions as well. And that's one of the great things about this club being a new club on a rich history. We've got an opportunity to be a startup club that is all about men's and women's football teams. So it's not an old school men's club that we're just bolting on a women's team. The women's football program and academies, and at the end of the day, the AFLW team are very much up the front. This is a women's and men's club, and we're very proud of that and very conscious of it as well.
Well, Lynchy, you've only got one more piece of business to do is, I don't know how you do it, legally rig that election so you get the result you're after this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that election, how it goes. But we're really confident. As you'd imagine, we've put a lot of work in. We're preparing our club that we will be in the competition. We will get our provisional licence converted to a full licence the end of next financial year. And we're very comfortable to work with whatever government is in place by the weekend. So, yeah, it's an exciting time. We know the leader of the opposition, Beck White, she's passionately behind the Tasmania Football Club. There's a couple of issues around the stadium, but yeah, she's very passionate behind the team, and she is a member, as the Premier is Jeremy Rockcliffe. So looking forward to working with either one.
Sounds good, mate. Sounds very political. You've settled very comfortably into the board seat. Good luck this weekend, and thanks for joining us on House of Footy, mate.
Absolute pleasure. Great to chat to you both. Thanks.
Cheers, Lynchy.